were talking about. So I'll just go over it from the top. I'll try to remember what I said before because I didn't rehearse any of this. No, but I want the people to know what we're talking about. So in the Quran, it says every man, meaning mine, has their own measure of wisdom. And then I mentioned something, and a brother over here said he agreed. And then I said, this isn't against you. This is a principle of nature that it doesn't matter if you agree with the truth or not. Meaning, the sun is hot, it doesn't matter if you accept that or not. It is what it is, right? And I said that's a beautiful thing, blah, 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 blah. Then, in the first chapter of the Quran, it states that the child is as perfect as the mother is. So man, the seed, must be deep planted in a soil that he might grow, unfold, as does the bud unfold to show the flower. The human seed that came forth from the heart of Allah was full ordained to be the Lord of plane of soul and of the plane of things made manifest. So Allah, the husbandman of everything that is, threw forth his human seed into the soil of soul. It grew apace, and man became a living soul. And he became the Lord of all the kingdom of the soul. Hark now, let every creature hear. The plane of soul is but the ether of the spirit plane, vibrating not so fast. And in the slower rhythm of this plane, the essences of life are manifest. How about now? Is it still buzzing? Great. Come to class, you won't have this problem. I don't know what to tell you. Deal with it, I guess. Can you unplug it from the charger? Just unplug it from the power strip. Maybe that'll work. The one that's not connected to the iPad.
Because the sound they're saying is drowning out everything you're saying. So.
How about now? Mic check.
Fixed.
Great. So, let every creature here, the plane of soul is but the ether of the spirit plane, vibrating not so fast. And in the slower rhythm of this plane, the essences of life are manifest. The perfumes and the odors, the true sensations, and the all of love are manifest. So, Juju and I were reading this one day and planning on having children. We were like, it's our duty to instruct our children what this stuff means. So we would have to break this down because that's very metaphysical. I'm pretty sure that a newborn may or may not understand that. You know what I'm saying? Although we are born knowing everything, but to try to teach it in a form that's, comfortable for children or palatable to children. I kind of wrote this down in the back of my Quran. That's why it's all beat up. I wrote chapter 1, we are all on our own journey, and those who are we around either help us learn more or prohibit us. And then I have the definition of ether. It means to ignite. So imagine if this corpse was lifeless, you being in it ignites it, right? Like a steam engine. It is a very light, volatile, inflammable fluid, a thin, subtle matter, much finer and rarer than air. And the definition of subtle means not dense, sophisticated, refined, adept, wise, and precious. It is a substance that allows electromagnetic waves to pass through it and interact with matter, without exerting any resistance with matter or energy. So you know how when energy is passing through copper, if too much energy goes through it, the copper fries, right? So it doesn't do that, right? It doesn't fry. It is any class of organic compounds containing an oxygen atom bound to two hydrocarbon groups. So I also broke that down because that's, to me, if I was a child, I probably wouldn't comprehend that. So I wrote, ether is the medium or conduit by which energy passes through it to power the soul to animate the body. So then I just drew the sun. My handwriting is terrible. But I drew the sun. The energy from the sun would be the spirit, right? Being the electromagnetic waves passing through the solar panel, right? The battery would be your soul, and whatever that battery is connected to, meaning the light bulb, would be the physical matter. So that electromagnetic energy or that spirit energy is going straight to that light bulb through this process in order for that light bulb to work. So in this scenario, the light bulb will be your body. The battery would be your soul, and the relationship between the solar panel and the sun would be the ether, because you can't see that coming from the sun to the solar panel. And then I put a charge controller is used to create resistance to not burn out the battery, but that's kind of, electromagnetic energy doesn't do that. That's why your body doesn't burn with you in it. Because your spirit is separate from your body. So when I say you in it, I'm talking about the spirit man is inside this physical thing. So then we started talking about divine law and stuff like that, and how this is just one reflection of what I read. And if many of you read it, you may see something different. So then I stated, this is how constitutions are formed. Us observing the same principle of truth. And since we all have a different angle of light, since we're all angels, we sit down together and we create constitutions. So imagine if all of us are looking at divine law, right? We would make that into our national cultures and traditions. Right? So if all of us are trying to create a Moorish constitution, we'd all reflect on what already pre-exists, meaning divine law, and then write that into our constitution. Right? So me, like I said before, I like to go around, walking around in the park. I like to look at birds, and oftentimes birds start scrapping over, like, you know, a big piece of bread like this big and the bird's like that big, and they're all fighting. Two of them are fighting over this big piece of bread. Right? Naturally, the birds would defend themselves. So that tells me nature's law says you have the right to self-preservation. Right? Since you have the right to self-preservation, that means you have the right to self-defense. So if you have the right to self-defense, that means you have the right to bear arms. So that's how constitutions are written. They're based off of divine law. Same thing with ecclesiastical law. This is where humans come into play to create councils to reflect on what already is and then write it down. You get what I'm saying? That's why things like the Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People, it's not law, it's a declaration of rights that already exist. So it's a reflection of law, meaning it is law. You get what I'm saying? You just have to enforce it as indigenous people. You get what I'm saying? And then, It's simple, right? Very simple. And I kind of just drew this just to simplify it even enough, because even more, because I know some people are visual learners. You know, I'm the same way with certain things. I just basically put divine law at the top, and ecclesiastical law is derived from divine law. Nature's law is derived from divine law. Jurisprudence is derived from nature's law. And then I broke down what jurisprudence means. Juris means right or positive. Prudence means philosophy, knowledge, or science. Philosophy means, phil means to love, and osophy means to study, peace. So philosophy is the study of love, or meaning you love to study. What do you study? Nature. What's nature based on? The divine.
Where is the divine law? Where would one go?
In nature. So you know how in the Quran it says, man, you know, you don't need an altar. You don't need to offer offerings to Allah. If you serve man, you're serving Allah. So if Allah is the divine, right? If I look at you, I'm looking at Allah. And since nature is derived from the divine, when I'm looking at you, I'm looking at Allah and nature. So that's where we see it. It's literally everywhere, which is why when the so-called Muslims want you to be part of their dogmatic so-called mosques, they have you submit that God is not, Allah is not in nature, Allah is not in man, Allah is outside of you. So now you're submitting to something that you can't even see. So who are you submitting to? And now that person's acting like the middleman between Allah and you. So now you're submitting to that person, whether it be a male or female. Doesn't matter. Right? Because in this book, it says every living thing has its own measure of will. My Quran's all beat up. I don't have a cover. So when you see animals, when you see birds, cats, snails, worms, ants, flies, they all have their own measure of choosing, free will. So they're all derived from the same source that we're derived from. You get what I'm saying? There's only one Allah, and all things come forth from that one thing, that one consciousness. So we're all the same. Just different levels of consciousness. Right, so the civil/constitutional law is derived from the national's customs and their cultural traditions, which is based on the observance of nature or the divine. So in Rhode Island State Constitution, it has clauses dealing with morals. Literally, you have to be a moral person to be in any office within the state of Rhode Island, but that's based off nature. Who would want an immoral person to be the governor, or to be the treasurer, or to be the attorney general, when the government's job is to protect its people, because the government is the people? You see how it's all based on this? That's why there is no separation of church and state, because both the church and the state is derived from the divine. So what's the separation? There is no separation. In fact, if you read the Quran of Muhammad, the Quran of Muhammad talks about estates. It talks about trust law. It talks about contract law. It talks about divine law. It even talks about constitutional law. All in the Quran. So what's the difference between church and state? Now, I'll tell you, within the Constitution for the United States of America, the only separation of church and state is where it states that no religious test shall be issued to any person to serve in office. That's the only separation, meaning there is no separation. Then when you read the Treaty of Tripoli, Article 11, it says the United States was not found on a Christian religion. So what was it found on? That's why in the beginning of the Declaration of Independence, it says nature's law and nature's God. Any questions? So again, do you see how we've been violating nature's law? Because we don't even know our own law, which we're the original people who reflected on the divine law and wrote it into civil law. Hence, the United States Code is derived from Hammurabi's Code of Law. Which deals with civil and criminal punishment, which when you read the USC, it deals with civil and criminal punishment. You see why Barack Obama said the Constitution is derived from Muslim law. Who are those Muslims? Who they call the Iroquois Confederacy, Iroquois, Iraq, Iroquois, Iraq, war on Islam. Islam means peace. Democracy means destruction and power. Who's the one being destroyed here in North America? The Moors, who are branded Negro, Black, Coloreds, Indian, West Indians, Hispanic, Latino, African American. That's why they call Mecca, our Mecca, Chirac. They're telling you right in your face. Chicago was founded by a Moor. They're telling you right in your face, but they know you don't know your own history because you went to their school. Which again, I served in the United States Marine Corps, took an oath to the Constitution, didn't read it. Why? Because emphasis wasn't placed on reading it. Emphasis was placed on one shot, one kill. That's what emphasis was placed on. Emphasis was placed on weapon, gear, body. Meaning you take care of your weapon first, then you take care of your gear first, then you eat last. Because the mission is more important. Meaning, the mission of teaching our people is more important than you. It's more important than me. It's more important than any single individual because it's not about you. That's why the prophet said, I came for the children and yet unborn. And then he said, the Moors in the third and fourth generation will comprehend what I've done. And then he said, the Moors in the year 2000 will come into this movement with their eyes wide open. Oh, but I see a lot. Seeing and knowing. Meaning you know you ain't black. Most of the time when I talk to our people and I share my story that when I was young, I thought I wasn't black, but since my parents called themselves black, that's what I call myself. My cousin's right here, he can tell you, we have a European grandmother who her parents came here around 1913, Ellis Island, right? And back when I was young, I used to call her black. Before I even knew it was a status. And he can tell you right up, European, Irish. And I called her black. And I didn't understand how she wasn't black because we're all in poverty. So how are you not black? You get what I'm saying? And that's how we begin brainwashing since we were young. You see how it's just a vicious cycle of nature. You know? But we keep putting ourselves in that cycle. Which again is part of the Willie Lynch manual of putting ourselves on this, orbiting plane of us being in servitude. Because of our own lack of knowledge. So all these so-called grand sheiks and sheikesses, which should just be sheik, because the word sheik has she right in it. All these people appearing to be intelligent, yet no one is called for a national Moorish constitutional convention. Because we have a divine constitution and bylaws, none of which treats civil punishment or criminal punishment, which every other nation on this planet has rules, regulations, and laws dealing with civil punishment and criminal punishment. Now, since we don't have those laws, when our people commit crimes, since we don't bring them to justice, guess who will? The Europeans. Because that's called abandonment. Right? Because society must go on. It doesn't matter if we refuse to be part of it. It must go on. People still need to live. People still need to eat. People still need to be protected. People still need a place to live, right? So it doesn't matter what the Moors who agree to be black do. If no one's going to enforce the law, if you won't, someone else will. So we're suffering from their will outmatching ours. What is our will focused on? Not us in this room. I'm talking about our people as a collective. What have you observed that our people's will is focused on?
Getting it back.
What does that mean?
Everything else, what we're supposed to be doing.
Why?
Because it's a worldly world and we got so many distractions. Because we want to be like everybody want to go to the basketball games and football games and worry about what everybody else is doing. They're not understanding, dog. We in a fight.
Yeah.
And it's dangerous. And
Yeah.
we targets.
Yeah.
We gotta know our law. We gotta know our constitutional form. We gotta know where we fit in at. You know what I'm saying? And how to execute that anytime.
Yeah.
By any means.
So can I add on to that? I heard you say where we fit in. I kind of had that when I was younger. Like, where do I fit in? Because I was always told by the Europeans that I'm the whitest black dude that they ever met.
I got that.
Which I never got. I was like, I don't know what the fuck, I don't know what that means.
I heard that too.
You know, and when I graduated high school, I was like, all these people in high school are fake. They all act like they like each other, but they don't.
Wow.
They're all going to the same community college, so it's like I'm going back to high school again. And if they don't go to college, they go to some job that they don't like. I'm not trying to do any of that. So the only other option I seen was the Marines, right? Now, Some of our people see a different option, joining the gang. But there's no difference. Since we lacked this, we joined one of their traps that they set up. You get what I'm saying? Because we're all looking for a place where we belong. Because that's nature. Can you give me the Rex 84 plan, please? Because they talk about that. You have it. Europeans talk about that. They talk about the artificial womb, because we all come from the womb, and when we get out of said womb, we're looking for an artificial womb, which is, when you see a flock of birds, that's what that is. When you see a gang, that's what that is. When you see a fraternity, that's what that is. When you see a job office, that's what that is. It's an artificial womb for you to grow and develop, because the entire earth is a womb. Well, we're growing and developing. The problem is we haven't provided an artificial womb that's beneficial to us. Right?
You're ready.
Now let me see if I can find it, because there's a lot in this book. I'm pretty sure it's titled Artificial Womb, though. Yep, Artificial Womb. From the time a person leaves its mother, I'll read that again. From the time a person leaves its mother's womb, its every effort is directed toward building, maintaining, and withdrawing into artificial wombs, various sorts of substantive protective devices or shells. Right? So, as an example, a municipality is a womb, whereas the policy enforcers are the ones providing you security. So they would be the antiviruses to protect the community. Right? The objective of these artificial wombs is to provide a stable environment for both stable and unstable activity. So the trap house is where unstable activity is sustained. Drinking, smoking, doing drugs, etc. To provide a shelter for evolutionary processes of growth and maturity, i.e. survival, to provide security for freedom, and to provide defensive protection for offensive activity. This is equally true for both the general public and the elite. They just form Masonic organizations. However, there is a definite difference in the way each of these classes go about the solution of their problems. Does that make sense? I
said praying, marching.
Yeah, we pray and march while they sit in councils and make decisions. They strategize, which they create the strategy, and those people who refuse to think, like the cops and the military members, they enforce their will. Just like in a bee colony or an ant colony. Some ant colonies will make ants like 4 times the size of the other ants. And that's their military. Last time I checked, the prophet said we're a nation of people, and he also said he's a prophet and a general. So why is it that we have all these Moorish science temples and no armed guards? Because the elite say they do it. And if you could Google or YouTube a video, there's a church, Christian church, where its members volunteer to bear arms and to protect said church. I just went over that. Nature's law is derived from the divine law, and the constitutional and civil law is derived from nature's law, which is derived from divine law. So what's wrong with that? The only issue would be intent. Are you bearing this with the intent to defend yourself? Or you're bearing this with the intent to take someone else's life with malice, which constitutes murder, not killing? You get what I'm saying? But this is where the mindset of the people comes into play. And this is where law comes into play, where law is a system of rules, traditions, etc., established by those who think to help guide those who are just waking up. Does that make sense? So if we're, a lot of our people have been institutionalized, whether it be college, military, prison, gang culture, whatever it may be, And it's our duty, if we want to rise as a nation of people, to establish plans, rules, and laws to uninstitutionalize them from that mindset while still keeping themselves and think nationally. So if you was a hitter in a gang, I joined the Moorish military. So now, at least if you die, you're going to die for a reason.
I concur.
Just like the Europeans have it set up. They have the commander-in-chief, who his hands stay clean because he's not doing all the dirty work. Then they have the military generals, right? Who tell the young ones, because they're recruiting from 18 to, I think the max is like 35. They tell them to go do the killing.
I think they recruit before that.
Now they can't.
They have like cadet school.
Well, yeah, they do that, yeah. Yeah, they do that, yeah.
Mentally.
Yeah, mentally, yeah. But actually going shipped off to boot camp, you can be 17 with your parents' signature, but once you turn 18, you can just go. Which, the recruiter came to my house, I was 17, and my mom was like, well, my son wants to go, which that's talked about in here, to get Junior to go off to war and die, which is their plan. So I'm a dumbass who followed their plan, didn't even know it, right? My mom was like, well, he wants to do it, he's going to do it when he turns 18, so I might as well just sign. So now we can't just keep blaming the Europeans because our dumbasses are doing it to ourselves. And I'm the dumbass who did it. Actually, I'll read that. Because again, when we read the things to be read at every meeting, the prophet talks about, every evil spirit is moving and they're trying every weak mind to overthrow, drag out the true foundation that has been laid, to cause confusion in the minds of ones that do believe. They have eyes to see but cannot see, ears to hear but cannot hear, at least they will be confounded of their sins. This is my sin that I have to live with every day. I served in the United States Marine Corps, which when they sing the Marine Corps hymn, from the halls of Montezuma to the shores of Tripoli, they're talking about conquering the Moorish Empire, and I was singing that proudly. And I'm a Moor, so imagine that. And I got tattoos to prove it. I got a DD-214 at home, I got awards, all that stuff. Uniforms, all that, dress blues. But guess what? I learned how to shoot. So now guess what I can do? Teach our people how to shoot. Teach our people to go to AR500.com to get yourself some sappy plates, which stop 7.62 rounds, just in case these Europeans try to run up on your house without a warrant. Or just in case any criminals try to run up in your house without a warrant. Yeah, it's a plate carrier.
Serious armor.
Trying to find it. It goes into mind control of the mother, the father, and the daughter and the son, which is pretty bad because it's true. You know what I mean? Might be towards the beginning. But yeah, like I said, this gets real technical, Stuff that our people would be like, what the hell is this? I mean, that's how I was when I first looked at it. Oh man, I recommend you get this book. If you want to see that, how bad it really is, I suggest you get this book. This is the Rex 84 plan, or the King Alfred plan, or the Silent Weapon for Quiet Wars, or Executive Order 11490. It's all the same thing. And my book is highlighted, so I would have found it faster. Yeah, hold on, let me just, because it really goes into detail. It even talks about, economic inducents. That's why they're always drowning us with ads. This is what they do. I might be in the right area. I don't know why I can't find it.
Here's that one.
Huh?
Here's that one.
I think so. Man, it's real good too, because they break it down. I'm sorry, guys. It's the most action-packed video I've ever seen. Energy. And it also talks about targeting the sex life, make it so that the males think that sex is more important than love, so that if a male's sex life is, low, then they think that they're less of a man. Like, this stuff is, they really actually planned this from like start to finish.
That's true.
It is true.
In Europe, Paris, in school, they teach the children. And see how we get sexual education here? And they tell us condoms and all this over there. They teach you want to fall in love with the person. You actually want to build a relationship with a sexual energy exchange and things like that.
Wow. I know it's in his book. I know for a fact, because I read it and highlighted the heck out of it. All right, this is the last time I'm going to go through this. I might have to just start reading this. I'll just start reading this. This is their primary strategy, diversion. Experience has proven that the simplest method of securing a silent weapon and gaining control over the public is to keep the public undisciplined and ignorant of basic systems, principles, on the one hand, while keeping them confused, disorganized, and distracted with matters of no real importance on the other hand. Hence the word vanity. Vanity means uselessness. And then they got something called Vanity Fair magazine, which telling you, oh, this is useless information. This is not going to help you in life. And our people know about Cardi B and what kind of, they can tell you all the tattoos she has, but can't tell you anything about the Constitution. They can tell you everything about the Lakers sports team, but can't tell you anything about the Constitution. They can tell you everything about what makeup kit they have, but can't tell you crap about the Constitution. I used to tell you about the best video games in the world without knowing nothing about the Constitution. You get what I'm saying? We know what celebrity scandals going on. Don't even know anything about the Constitution. We know all this stuff. We know all the rap lyrics to every song on our iPod. Our iPod Nano, yeah, we still use that. And our CDs. Don't know crap about on our Walkman. Our favorite Walkman, don't know nothing about the Constitution. We know all the codes to Mario, Super Mario. Know where to get all the stars, but don't know crap about the Constitution.
But they don't play Mario no more.
They just came out with an app.
So this is achieved, and your spirit's gonna get real low, just so you know. But don't worry, I'll bring it back up, because this stuff is sick. Because you can, as I'm reading it, you see, oh yeah, this is working, and I know family members, including myself, that this has worked on. I used to play video games for 13 hours straight, streaming. Thought I was gonna be a big streamer and make hella money. Systems design and economics, and by discouraging technical creativity, which Juju and I were talking on, and I had like a 43 in English. That was my midterm grade, and then towards the end it was 43, because I fell asleep every day in class because I knew I wasn't getting nothing. Then I went to summer school. I don't even remember doing any work in summer school, and I still graduated on time. You get what I'm saying? Because their goal isn't for us to go anywhere. Number two, engaging their emotions. Right? You have one brain, but you have a left side and a right side. I can't remember which side, but one side is logic, more logic-based, and the other one's more emotional, artistic, stuff like that. So they only want you to be one-sided of your brain. Right? Increasing self-indulgence and their indulgence in emotional and physical activities by A, unrelenting emotional affrontations and attacks. meaning mental and emotional rape, by way of constant barrage of sex, violence, and wars in the media, especially the TV and the newspaper. So all of us watching Power and Empire on TV, all this violence, right? All of us watching, Marvel, all that violence, right? What else? Sex in the City. Has the word sex right in it. If you watch, Kim Kardashian. If you watch, most of the stuff that our people watch is flooded with sex, violence, and war. Power, yeah. That's their goal.
They attack the women specifically.
Hold on, we'll get to that. So, give them what they desire in excess, junk food for thought, and deprive them of what they really need. That's why most of our food don't have minerals in it. That's why when you go to places like Job Lot, they have all the snacks in bright colors, because that's what attracts your eye. Right? I remember being young. Asked my mom for McDonald's. She said, "You got McDonald's money?" No. But that's the crap that they're pumping into our communities. Go down to Cranston, and you probably won't see as many McDonald's as you see on Broad Street in Providence.
It's not only that, it's the corner store too.
Yeah.
Who's owned by your fellow Moor.
Mm-hmm.
Who doesn't know he's a Moor.
Mm-hmm.
And he's selling.
Yep. You garbage.
Radiation,
Yep.
Then you get Hindus who come from Hindustan and they won't touch a single thing in their store
Mhm.
water.
Number 3, rewriting history and law and subjecting the public to deviant creation, thus being able to shift their thinking from personal needs to highly fabricated outside priorities. Highly fabricated, not just fabricated. Highly fabricated outside priorities. Meaning, as an example, I'll give you the story all the time. You might have heard me say it. I'll say it again. I knew a Moor who thought he was black. He was getting evicted from his house. And he went out to buy a fake gold chain. He was wearing Gucci, all that good stuff. So we can go out and drink at the bar. These preclude their interest in and discovery of the silent weapon of social automation. Social automation. Social automation. Social automation, which means you're not thinking for yourself, meaning that urge to go get designer clothes is not originated from you. What else we got here? Diversion summary. Keep the adult public attention diverted away from the real social issues and captivated by matters of no real importance. Flavor of love. I remember coming home, my parents watching MTV, watching Flavor of Love. Me and my sister, we were young at the time, go and lay in my parents' bed and watch TV with them. Crap! That's what we do. What else? Keep the young public ignorant of real mathematics, real economics, real law, and real history. Entertainment. Keep the public entertained below a 6th grade level. Work. Keep the public busy, 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 with no time to think back on the farm with the other animals, meaning away from nature. And or in the event where you become conscious, you tell your family members they're just still focused on work. Working for the European. Instead of getting with you, figuring out, hey, how do we make something for ourselves? Because if we take over a city with commerce and we start buying and trading goods and services and we're getting fiat, they can't tax that because they can't record that. And there's no social security number attached to that, so they can't garnish your wage. Consent. Consent, meaning you agree. the primary victory, meaning that's what they want. But Jamal, if I don't pay my taxes in my car, that's not really my car, is going to get whatever. It ain't your car, first of all.
I watched the video again last night. It popped up while I was doing some research.
The video of me? Yeah. But people will ask, people will assume
know.
that since I lost their car, which at the time I thought it was mine,
That you had no power.
that I lost. Meanwhile, I'm saving over 500 notes a month by switching to not giving an F. By letting them have it, right? Because they took it. I sent them a letter to the bank and the dealership, and to the chief of police. I said to the bank and dealership that Ehrlich J. Fox, who was Connecticut chief of police, has the property that we're in a contract with, so any payments are to be sent to him, since he has it. So now I'm saving $275 a month. And I canceled my insurance, so I was saving $245 a month. So now you tell me who's the real winner. But, oh no, we need a new car because you got to get girls. I'm straight. Right? A silent weapon system operates upon data obtained from a docile public by legal, but not always lawful, force. Meaning, pay your taxes or you're going to go to jail. To the IRS, who isn't even government. Because we're teaching you to not bear arms, so you're defenseless. And then we're locking up your military, who are really the gangs, because they have no national allegiance to you, because they don't know their nationality. And then we're taking your military generals because they're serving in our military. And then when they get out, they go to severe mental damage, which I'm living proof. See how they're destroying us? And we're playing games. Much information is made available to silent weapon system programmers through the Internal Revenue Service. So they're telling you where they're getting their information from. Hence, House Resolution 25, Fair Tax Act of 2019, entered into the 116th Congress January 3rd, 2019. So now you tell me if this is real or not. See the studies in the structure of the American economy for an IRS agent source list. This information consists of the enforced delivery of well-organized data obtained in federal and state tax forms collected, assembled, and submitted by slave labor. So you think you got a job? Look up the definition of employee in the law book, and it'll say servant.
Employee, servant.
Yeah, you're a slave. That slave. Provided by taxpayers and employers. Furthermore, the number of such forms submitted to the IRS is a useful indicator for public consent, an important factor in strategic decision making. So, Moors will tell you, notice to succeed in commerce, you got to get an EIN or ITIN from the IRS, huh? In order to get your trust, you got to get the stuff from the IRS. That's what they tell you, right? But this is telling you that the IRS is used to destroy you. Not only that, because they can say this is conspiracy theorist stuff, right? Go to congress.gov, type in HR 25, Fair Tax Act of 2019, submitted to the 116th Congress, January 3rd, 2019, and you tell me if they admit to you that the IRS is unconstitutional. You tell me if the federal income tax is destroying your jobs and family. You tell me if they admitted that to you. But then these Moors will say, in order to operate in commerce as a lawful Moor, like the Prophet intended, you have to get an EIN from the IRS. And then us being desperate, a lot of us having good intentions, we wouldn't see that that person's lying to us.
Don't panic. Don't panic.
Consent coefficients, numerical feedback indicating victory status, psychological basis. When the government is able to collect tax and seize private property without just compensation, it is an indication that the public is ripe for surrender and is consenting to enslavement and legal encroachment. Now, since Donald Trump has been in office, the government shut down 3 times, right?
Yeah.
3, 4 times?
Yeah.
They blamed that on lack of funding, didn't they?
In the war.
How many of y'all paid taxes during those 3 times?
to shift something around.
All right, so if you didn't pay taxes, how many of your family members you think pay taxes? So you're telling me they took all of our fiat and they don't have no funding?
Oh, wait, I did pay
No,
taxes.
right?
Well, they were shut down.
I'm bugging
How
out.
they won't shut down.
It's crazy. I'm bugging out.
They doing all they
You're telling me,
right now.
you're telling me they're developing buildings and they don't got no finances? So you're telling me in our neighborhoods there's potholes bigger than your car. They tell you we don't have no funding for that. You go to their neighborhoods, they're building houses, gated communities. And you're paying taxes? But they don't have funding? So you're telling me that they're printing paper at will, which that stuff you call money in your pocket, that's not money, it's paper. They're printing that at will, but they don't
It's
have
actually cotton.
they don't have funding?
It's
That's what you're telling me? Oh.
25%.
A good and easily quantified indicator of harvest time is the number of public citizens who pay income tax despite an obvious lack of reciprocal or honest service. So you're telling me you pay state taxes, property taxes, which funds the police, and they're killing your people?
That's what be blowing my mind.
But then you're going to call the so-called white man the oppressor, but you're paying them.
To oppression.
To oppress you.
Hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Not only that, more, I just came to find out that when they put a ticket against you in Massachusetts, in the jurisdiction of Massachusetts, they're not only suing you, right? But
Yeah.
to put in your name, you not only get into a piece of paper to be able to use commerce, they put an extra $5, whatever serve knows, for their coverage for submission of the paperwork.
Yeah.
So you still paying for
Yeah.
that $5.
Yeah, they call it court fees.
Court fees.
Charge
Yeah.
you for
So they don't tell us that.
Yeah.
Just put it in there without us.
Yeah, they charge you court fees.
But I went to find out that that's what it was, the $5 extra.
Mhm.
Because I went to Massachusetts General Law. I went to Massachusetts General Laws inside, and accordingly to that, I had to challenge one of the individuals inside of the traffic courts and tell them why you guys are saying you guys can charge me this, but you guys are charging me extra $5.
Yeah.
By me asking questions, becoming a thinker, it made me to realize they just want to take advantage of extra
Yeah.
us without even letting us know
Yeah.
how to be able to engage into commerce.
Yeah, and then we just consent. That's their primary objective.
Yo, it's crazy because when you ask them for certified copies of whatever documents, they literally put the price on it. And I always get the certified dismissals and go in there and I watch the price on it and I just walk out there. But I watch other people pick up their certified stuff and walk to the window and pay it. And it just shows you like the mentality. Like, I know I don't gotta pay this notice. Like they're obligated to give this to me. Like I don't like paper. So I take it and I look at the price and I walk out. And nothing don't happen to me. But these other people, they're so terrified in themselves. They see the price and they head right up to the window like, oh my God. And make it rain on them.
They have to just try to hold it. You know what I'm saying? Because I really don't know.
So now this is the political structure of a nation dependency, right? The primary reason why the individual citizens of a country create a political structure is a subconscious wish or desire to perpetrate their own dependency relationship of childhood. So they hire politicians to face reality for them. Summary. The people hire the politicians so that the people can 1. Obtain security without managing it. 2. Obtain action without thinking about it. 3. Inflict theft, injury, and death upon others without having to contemplate either life or death. 4. Avoid responsibility for their own intentions. 5. Obtain the benefits of reality and science without exerting themselves in the discipline of facing or learning either of these things. They give the politicians the power to create and manage a war machine to 1. Provide for the survival of the nation/womb. 2. Prevent encroachment of anything upon the nation/womb. 3. destroy those citizens of their country who do not conform for the sake of stability of the nation/womb. Politicians hold many quasi-military jobs. I'll read that again. Politicians hold many quasi-military jobs.
What's up?
Hillary playing Benghazi.
Meaning, the state police, Providence Police, is the military. The mayor is in charge of that military. That's what that means. That's why they got up armored tanks when most civilians don't even have armor-piercing rounds. Because they're a military. Being the lowest, I'll read that again. Politicians hold many quasi-military jobs, the lowest being the police, which are soldiers, the attorneys and the CPAs next, who are spies and saboteurs, licensed, and the judges, who shout the orders and run the closed union military shop for whatever the market will bear. The generals are industrialists. Prison industrial complex. The presidential level of commander-in-chief is shared by the international bankers. The people know that they have created this farce and financed it with their own taxes, in quotes, consent. But they would rather knuckle under than be the hypocrite. Thus, a nation becomes divided into two very distinct parts, a docile subnation and a political subnation. The political subnation remains attached to the docile subnation, tolerates it, and leeches its substance until it grows strong enough to detach itself and devour its parent. The draft as military service. Let me see if I want to read this one. Yeah, I'll read it. Few efforts of human behavior modification are more remarkable or more effective than that of the socio-military institution known as the draft. A primary purpose of a draft or other such institutions is to instill, by intimidation, in the young males of society the uncritical conviction that the government is omnipotent, meaning all-powerful, everywhere, can't be defeated, right? He is soon taught that a prayer is slow to reverse what a bullet can do in an instant. Thus, a man trained in religious environment for 18 years of his life can, by this instrument of the government, be broken down, be purged of his fantasies and delusions in a matter of mere months. Hence, United States Marine Corps boot camp is 3 months.
That's crazy.
Once that conviction is instilled, all else becomes easy to instill. That's why when most military members get out the military, they either become a politician, join the secret service, become private, military, paramilitary, some type of in that field, which is also controlled by them. What a knee slapper. These people have it on lock, right? Even more interesting is the process by which a young man's parents, who purportedly love him, can be induced to send him off to war to his death. Although the scope of this work will not allow this matter to be expanded in full detail, nevertheless, a course overview will be possible and can serve to reveal those factors which must be included in some numerical form in the computer analysis of social and war systems. So they have breaking this down by mathematics. We begin with a tentative definition of the draft. The draft, Selective Service ETC, is an institution of compulsory collective sacrifice and slavery, which in the military they'll teach you that your free time is a privilege, not a right, meaning they can take it away from you.
Same thing in prison. They state that in their rec yard.
Yeah. It's a privilege, not a right.
More.
Yeah.
I want to, for the corporation, I would like to be able to put this and implement it to everybody to the Title 20 USA codes, the USAC 3002, page 15. The united means of the federal corporation and all courts are registered under Dumb and Broad Street as a profit corporation enterprise.
Yeah.
Facts.
Yeah. Meaning their only purpose is to make finance. Like I've said, I've been to Rhode Island Superior Court with a Moor. They had, I think he was on probation or something like that, or there was a warrant or whatever. We went down. As soon as we got to the clerk, she said, "Are you putting down?" I was like, "Oh, are you putting down? Like putting down a payment?" I was like, "Oh shit, it's like that? Like you don't even care? Like, yeah, like this is an instant, like she, yeah, yes."
Was she Slavic or Moorish?
She was Slavic.
And she said,
Yes. And he was like, "I'm trying to put down." She was like, "How much?" He was like, "I can only put down 5." She was like, "All right." Because if this was really about law and protecting your society, yeah, 5 notes.
And then people that only the investors, they said that it's only 80% private
It's crazy.
investors, right?
You gotta understand
Private
the trap
investors
when
are
you see
80%
the trap, bro.
into John and Broad Street. And then the rest of the other 20% is public investors. They're pretty much international investors that we cannot even get into this profit organization that put it into enterprise.
So, again, is collective sacrifice and slavery devised by middle-aged and the elderly for the purpose of pressing the young into doing the public dirty work. It further serves to make the youth as guilty as the elders, thus making criticism of the elders by the youth less likely. It's a generational stabilizer. It is marketed and sold to the public under the label of patriotic national service. That's why, in the Marines it says the few, the proud, the Marines, right? And what's the Army? Army's be all you can be, serve your nation, right? In the Marine Corps hymn it says, "From the halls of Montezuma to the shores of Tripoli, I will fight my country's battles on the air and land and sea, first to fight for rights and freedom, something, something, something. We're proud to claim the title of United States Marines." Right? Once a candid economic definition of the draft is achieved, that definition is used to outline the boundaries of a structure called a human value system. Human value system, which in turn is translated into the terms of game theory. The value of such a slave labor is given to a table of human values, a table broken down into categories by intellect, experience, post-service job demand, etc. So when you take your, what's it called, ASVAB for the military, that score is based on where they're going to put you basically for the rest of your life.
They do the same thing in prison too.
It's an institution.
Every institution.
Yeah. Some of these categories are ordinary and can be tentatively evaluated in terms of the value of certain jobs for which a known fee exists. Some jobs are harder to value because they are unique to the demands of social subversion. For an extreme example, the value of a mother's instruction to her daughter, causing that daughter to put certain behavioral demands upon a future husband, 10 of 15 years hence, thus by suppressing his resistance to a perversion of a government, making it easier for a banking cartel to buy the state of New York in, say, 20 years. Shall I read that again? I'm going to read it again. And I'm going to read it slower.
That's like,
Some jobs are harder to value because they are unique to the demands of social subversion. For an extreme example, the value of a mother's instruction to her daughter, causing that daughter to put certain behavioral demands upon a future husband 10 of 15 years hence. Thus, by suppressing his resistance to a perversion of a government, making it easier for a banking cartel to buy the state of New York in, say, 20 years. So, you know how,
Women govern.
Yeah, women govern,
They telling you right there.
and they're telling you to reverse nature's instincts.
Yes.
So they're telling to women to reject the men who are intelligent, and go after the men that put gold fronts in. They're always doing this on their music videos, and they're just blowing hella bands on women who get implants. So now the women think, okay, this is what the men want, when they're the ones really setting the standard. So then they just follow that and they wear the green jumpsuits. So now both the men and the women are so distracted that they're abandoning their own land. So now a banking cartel can just buy up all the property because they're so focused on fabricated illusions of reality. And they put an estimate of 15 years on that. That's one generation. Such a problem leans heavily upon the observations and data of wartime espionage and many types of psychological testing, but crude mathematical models, algorithms, etc., can be devised, if not to predict, at least to predetermine these events with maximum certainty. What does not exist by natural cooperation is thus enhanced by calculated compulsion. Human beings are machines. Human beings are machines, which we can be compared to machines. Our minds can be programmed just like a machine. And there's nothing wrong with that. Levers, which may be grasped and turned, and there is little real difference between automating a society and automating a shoe factory. These derived values are variables. It is necessary to use a current table of human values for computer analysts. These values are given in true measure rather than US dollar, since the latter is unstable, being presently inflated beyond, I guess there's a page missing. It says beyond the, and then that's it. I guess so.
It ain't over. That's what they think.
But yeah, that's some of their plans. So again, to bring it back to what we need to do, is we need to have a national constitutional convention.
Immediately.
So we can get our government going.
Immediately.
Because there's a lot of people claiming to be government. How do you have a government with no executive department? How do you have a government with no legislative department? How do you only have a government with a judicial department? Or how do you only have a government with an executive department? Now, it can be a constitutional monarch where the monarch is the supreme executive and legislative authority, but that does not mean that the people have no say. Because the people will create that monarch knowing that that monarch is going to base decisions that will benefit, that will effectively benefit the collective rather than a private, monarchy. As an example, if you look at Abdul Aziz and his, well, not him, but what his sons have done, that doesn't benefit the people. You get what I'm saying? Yeah. Which the Prophet put, salud, put Abdul Aziz in the front of the Quran.
He still live?
No, he's dead. He's been dead.
Oh, I'm about to say.
But his sons,
Did not fulfill his legacy.
he's not even close. He was a warrior. He united Saudi Arabia, which is why they call it Saudi Arabia after him. He actually was doing some crazy, not crazy, but he's doing some elite stuff. Like he was taking local monarchs, like going in their camps, waiting at night with a few men, taking their heads off because they were corrupting the nation, which is treason. So he's like, oh, since you're my people and you're committing treason against your own people, you have to go.
Immediately.
Then he united Saudi Arabia. The people flourished until his sons took power. And as he was either uniting with the several different, political figures of Saudi Arabia, he would marry into their family, so that way every heir of the throne would be of his blood, mixed with, every other tribal leader.
That man got around.
Yeah, basically. Which I think he has over 500 heirs or something like that. Right. But this is part of the danger of having the imperial divan by bloodline, because the heirs will get out of control. Or that man grew up in a different circumstance, war-ridden, people were suffering. His heirs don't have that experience, so now they're like, oh, this is all me. Instead of realizing that their status is supposed to help benefit the entire nation, not themselves. So instead of having 14 gold cars, how about you help stabilize your country's economy?
So they're not the ones running the country.
Of course not. Europeans run it. But, thank you for your book. So, the reason why I suggest, well, I don't suggest, it needs to happen. The reason why I'm saying we need a national constitutional convention is, for example, if you go to riseofthemoors.org and you read the rudder and sextant prepared by Taj Tariq Bey, as an example, he'll say, well, I'm not sure he's saying it, but in the book that he prepared, it states that the Sultan has to be 55 years old. Now, this is one person saying that. Now, does one person speak for the entire nation of Moors? No. So in order for that to be law, we would have to come together as a Moorish National Constitutional Convention and vote on that. You get what I'm saying? In order to be the president of the United States, you have to be at least 35. That's significant. And other, which I talk about in my fourth book, other nations have their own age requirements to be their prime minister or our equivalent to a sultan within their country. Some are older, some is, I think one is like 17. But that's what those people have chosen. And also remember, the quality of education that they're giving their people is different from us because we're under colonial occupation. So whereas other nations are giving their people the actual truth about who they are at an early age, we're getting a bunch of crap. And whereas other countries have been war-torn for a bunch of years, that 17-year-old has way more experience than a 70-year-old here who just lives in the projects. You get what I'm saying? But that's something that we'd all have to come, not one person saying this, the entire nation or the majority of the entire nation of Moors here in North America would have to come together to create this document, which it should be easy to do in theory. Because like the prophet said, we are a hard-headed, stiff-necked group of people who don't do anything except at the point of the sword, meaning some of our people need to be getting beat up by the Europeans for a little while longer in order for them to come running to the temple for help, and then we can nationalize them. So they'll see us doing it, won't come until they need help, and then they'll come. But, there are others like me who I wasn't in any situation where I needed help. I started studying more science because I figured out, oh, this is who I am. And also the prophet said, don't worry, the temple is going to dwindle down to a few numbers, but keep the doors open because I'm going to drive the Asiatics in. Meaning they're going to have a real reason to come to this temple. Which that means the Europeans are going to basically take that boot that they've been putting on our neck, put some nails in it, some spikes, dip it in toad poison, and then really step on our necks. Then the Asiatics are going to come in. Because apparently stepping on our necks isn't enough. But
We have ways to get that off them.
yeah, but they have to come here.
Electricity, food, everything is running. Why would we need to come to a temple?
True.
In my country, you don't have electricity for 24 hours. There's gaps of hours, like 6 hours, you won't have electricity. So you may have to talk to your neighbor and converse.
Actually be a community.
And you can, I'd rather be on my phone, like, hey, Facebook, we talk to Facebook for
Yeah.
forever. Islam.
Yeah. But before we get to the level of having a national constitutional convention for Moors, which I say maybe in about 50 years we'll be able to do it. Depending on how severe these Europeans crank things up against us. And like you said, social media takes a lot of our minds and stuff like that. But in the meantime, we can galvanize as a community and start having meetings with the city hall officials, state officials, and just communicate with them by saying things like, all right, like I've said before, here's certified copies from the Library of Congress of the 14th Amendment being unconstitutional, meaning we're not citizens of the state of whatever. We are Aboriginal indigenous people. Here's the information from the state of Illinois and the state of Georgia recognizing us as a sovereign theocratic government, meaning we operate and protect ourselves. We are the said community. Here's what our IDs look like, so please tell your chief of police that when he sees this, we're a separate nation of people. At the time, we're still developing, so we're working on institutions to help enforce law and hold our people accountable. But in the meantime, if you find one of our people committing crimes, speak to us. We'll act as a consulate to make sure, our people's rights are violated. But if you need to invoke justice against our people for committing crimes, then go ahead. But we're teaching our people not to be criminals. But if they violate, since we're in no position to do so, you're going to have to take care of them. It's called extradition. We'll extradite them. Meaning, here you go. Since you violated our laws, you obviously don't want to be part of our community, so go ahead and scoot. Skedaddle. That's extradition. Which is what the Chinese people are fighting against. That's why they're rebelling. Because what the United States has been doing, as an example, in Colombia, is if a Colombian commits a crime that the United States doesn't like, the Colombians have agreed to extradition laws where the Colombians will send that Colombian person to the jurisdiction of the United States, which violates the Act of State doctrine, which basically violates every nation's right to sovereignty and, handle their own affairs domestically. But as I stated before, we're not fit to do that yet. So we'd have to say, hey, this person committed a crime, murder, all right, Europeans. You don't have personam jurisdiction, but you have jurisdiction over this murder, so we're going to be there present as a consulate to make sure you don't violate this person's rights, etc. But litigate. You know what I'm saying? Right. Because we are a separate nation of people, but our people still commit crimes. Right. So we have to stop thinking that, we have to stop acting like law doesn't exist. Just because we say we're Moors and we're above the law all of a sudden when we say we're Moors, and just because we say we're Moors, oh, we're automatically noble now. When that's not how that works. Just like when you say you're a Moor, that does not automatically make you an L or a Bey. Because if you claim the title L and you don't know how to write law, well, then you don't deserve that title. That's nature. In short, there shouldn't be all these L's and Bays and Ali's running around. Just like you don't see every European claiming to be a governor. There's only one governor. Just like there's only one president. But us doing things like this is how we fell. There was a point in time where there were at least 7 Moors claiming to be the Sultan of Morocco. So then when the Europeans wanted to do treaties with the Sultan, they're like, wait a minute. Who do I talk to? You get it? So now, look at the Moors. How many temple number 1s do we have? Who's taking us serious? We're not even taking ourselves serious.
Same thing with like the churches, like the First Baptist Church.
Yeah, but I'm talking about Moors right now. But you're right. So to alleviate that, have a Moorish national constitutional convention. Because the Moorish Science Temple of America is a private corporation. That's what it is. It was a regency which had de facto government powers, Well, it had de jure and de facto because there were elections going on, kinda. As an example, with the Supreme Grand Council that the Prophet established, he appointed them, and then the people agreed. So that was kind of, it was kind of an election. But there's nothing wrong with the word de facto. Just like there isn't anything wrong with the word de jure. I de facto set up this temple. And then the Moors voted me to Grand Sheikh. So that's de jure. But in fact, I was still already doing what I was doing as Grand Sheikh. So now, all these de jure and de facto Grand Sheikhs come together with their delegates, with their council, and let's sit and talk about who should be in the chair. Meaning the Sultan. Meaning the Supreme Grand Sheikh. Meaning the successor to Ali.
And I swear, if one person says, we already had a sultan, what happens when any monarch dies?
There's another
A new
one.
takes place.
Correct.
So I swear, if anybody comments that there was already a sultan.
You know what someone told me? Someone said, here's your Sultan. Now. Thank you. Then people will say, well, the Prophet is our Sultan. He's still enforcing law on the ether plane. All right, well, last time I checked, I'm on the physical plane.
And these Europeans are still got their foot on it, so
That-
obviously it's not working.
Who claiming the spot right now?
I'll write the name down. Don't say it.
No, I'm saying, I think
No, I'm writing down.
research, though. I think I heard it through the grapevine.
So the Moor claiming to be the Supreme Grand Sheikh of the Moorish Science Temple of America, which is claiming the Sultan's position. I'll write the name down and pass it around. Don't say nothing. No, it does matter. Because he's taking energy from people. I actually have a message in my phone where he messaged a bunch of people talking about taxes, because each temple is supposed to pay taxes to the government. So now he's taking our people's finances, so it absolutely does matter.
People need to put him on notice. Not the sultans and the sheiks and the people.
Correct. Correct.
I have a
We gotta put a
question.
lien on him.
So this is,
Shouldn't Moors tax the Europeans?
of course, but we don't have a government yet. We don't even have a sultan. But yes. So here's one of the people claiming to be the Supreme Grand Sheikh. Which when you claim to be the Supreme Grand Sheikh, you're also claiming to be the Supreme Grand Chairman, which the word divan means to seat, chair, chairman, seat, sultan sits in the divan, sultan.
Tell them to pull up.
And let me just read the 101s that the Prophet prepared for us, just so there's no confusion. Number 34, what title is given to a ruler in Morocco? The answer is Sultan. That's the man claiming to be your Sultan. One man claiming to be your Sultan. There's about 3 individuals on Facebook claiming to be the Sultan. And for the record, the Moorish American Consulate has claimed that they have activated the Moorish Treasury with 666 trillion dollarium, which is a Latin word for dollars. So if it's your Moorish Treasury, what does that mean? It's your fiat. It's your money, right? Now gold and silver, not fiat. They said gold. No, they're saying dollarium, which the definition of dollar is gold and silver. So if they have that, right?
We getting paid.
What is their duty?
Uplift the nation.
To uplift the nation. So that means we're supposed to get finances to help start his traveling barbershop. So you can make money, and then based on your business, not what you get out of your paycheck, based on what your business makes, that finance goes back into the treasury. For your vegan restaurant, we're supposed to get not a loan, a grant from this treasury. That's the purpose of the treasury. To start your business, so that when the Moors patronize it, once your business becomes successful, that business pays taxes, and that's how the economy flourishes. That's what the economy is based on. The people doing business with each other, buying and selling. That's what it's based on. So any more claiming to be, I'm this whatever and the whatever, and we got a Moorish whatever, specifically treasury, that's what the treasury is for. Period. So since these people are making these claims that they have 666 trillion dollarium, you might want to start asking them for that business grant that we desperately need. Because if you're claiming this the Moorish treasury, that means all Moors have right of claim there too. Is that or is that not true?
Second that motion.
People are asking who the person is on paper.
I didn't see the paper, but I did see the picture.
Tell that's why I went this way.
Tell them to look up temple number one.
That's why I went this way.
Which one?
What? To look up what?
Hey, they're gonna have to look up temple number one.
Which one? Anyone claiming to be temple number 1 and claiming to be the supreme grand sheikh is claiming to be sultan. That's a fact. Don't believe me. Look at what the prophet wrote. If the prophet was the supreme grand chairman of the Supreme Grand Council of the Moorish Science Temple of America, and the word imperial divan is dealing with the Moorish sultanate, and the word divan means seat, so the word chairman and divan is the same thing, and the sultan sits in said seat, then where's the confusion? Therefore, anyone claiming to be Supreme Grand Sheikh is telling you that to your face, they're your sultan. Now, if they're your sultan, how come you haven't seen them in your area if they have things established? Because in the Quran that the prophet set up says that the glory of the king is the welfare of the people, not themselves. And that they employeth, or what is it? Establisheth new colonies. Meaning, if we got stuff on lock here, where do we go? We go to Connecticut and help the Moors there. Then we go to Massachusetts, help the Moors there. Then we go to every so-called 50 states of this so-called European Union to get Moors out of that union and with the Moorish government. So now every temple paying taxes goes to establishing new temples so it doesn't have to come out the pockets of the Moors because we're already in poverty. We're already struggling. Then any surplus goes into, all right, which temples have the most Moors? All right, there's 3,000 Moors in that area. All right, let's help those Moors get businesses because that's just going to create more finance. So all these people claiming to be your officials, you might want to start questioning them because it's your job. It's called freedom of information. So since the Moorish American Consulate put out there that they have 666 trillion dollarium, ask them to show you proof that they have gold and silver coin since they activated it by some magical gold and silver coin button.
Right here.
Just for.
Not only that.
Hold on.
As an exercise.
Go ahead.
As a simple exercise, let's just, for the camera, just name the positions and the people who are in the consulate, if they even know their name and their positions, just for a test, a measure. Like who is Shalimar? Who is the second? Who is the secretary? Do we know their names? Or do they know their names? Or their position, what they do, and what our position as a people, do we know what our rights and our demands are when it comes to them? Like, who is Shalimar? Who is Light Tizirbe? Who is Sharon, such and such? I only know 3. Who's the 4th, who's the 5th, who's the 6th? Of what?
You absolutely right, man. You got shaking, man, because I
You
said the
do
same
have a
thing.
point, and it goes back to the subject matter today, you know, us needing a convention, a constitutional convention. Because once you do that, all faces and names
Are public because they're supposed to be public servants. And it is a requirement that all public servants have a principal office of operation. So that way, if they violate the people in any manner, the people can confront them and overthrow them if needed. So why is it that the Moorish American Consulate doesn't have a principal office of operation? Every other government on this, excuse my language, I was about to say something. Every other government on this planet has a principal office of operation so that the people can hold them accountable. And for those who are also claiming to be government, how come you don't have a website so we can see your face? Because all these Moors claiming to be temple number 1, they should have a website with their faces on it so we know what they look like, not on social media claiming to be government. Not even social media, Facebook that some Europeans created. How you government on Facebook, which is another Nation of People's platform.
Cyber trolling.
Cyber trolling.
And how come all these Moors claiming to be government have .coms, which means commerce, and not .gov, which means government?
Yeah, they doing too much.
That's why we don't claim to be a government. We claim exactly what we are, a non-profit civic organization. That's why you go to riseofthemoors.org. Org meaning organization.
Say that again, because there's people.
Which part?
Everything, because there's people.
Okay.
You saying that you are part of the consulate and that,
Because those people don't read.
right, so let's clear it up.
All right. How is any Moor claiming to be part of any government and their website ends in .com, which .com means commerce? How is any Moor claiming to be a government if they end in .org when .gov means government? Right? And like I said before, over here at Rise of the Moors, we don't claim to be a government. We tell you exactly who we are. We are a non-profit civic organization. That's why it's riseofthemoors.org.
That person might be late to the Baja because if that person was up to speed, they would have watched where we started in and we were with the consulate at a point. The consulate made incompetent decisions and we withdrew from the consulate. So you might want to backtrack.
Yeah, and I made that public notice for this very reason. Yeah, it's not my fault that this entity that claims to be government didn't update their website and still has my name listed. That's not my fault.
Well, they're doing that for credibility. So you kind of need to know. You know what I'm saying? Don't jump into war if you're not ready to war.
Yeah, but let me just clarify this, because for some reason, Moors think, although I've said this many times, that I'm against the consulate. I've never said I was against it. I've said I'm against incompetent people making incompetent decisions. I comprehend the importance of the consulate. I'm just against incompetence. Yeah, of a consulate. So there's a difference between the concept of a consulate and the people part of it. Just like there's a difference between the Moorish Science Temple of America and the frauds claiming to be the legitimate Moorish Science Temple of America. I'm not against any consulate. How else do, nations deal with each other? Can you hear me that, please? Sorry. It's through consulates. For some reason, my cousin now sitting right there is calling me. So yeah, I'm not against the consulate. I'm against incompetency such as Moors. What's going on?
Good?
That's, no, it's my cousin in the bathroom.
Your cousin just called?
Your cousin.
Yeah.
Went downstairs.
I will take a
He's downstairs?
Yep, I will take a look.
No, he's right here in the bathroom.
No, that's not.
Yeah. I don't know.
Been good?
Maybe he probably just left.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Peace. Yeah.
It's fine.
No.